So now what we'd like to do is introduce some of the instruments that we were playing. And I'm going to start by introducing what we call the drum set, which is an instrument I'm sure many of you have seen before. But a fun fact about it is it used to be played by 3 different people. Back in the day, it used to be one person playing the snare drum, one person playing the bass drum, and one person playing the cymbals. And then about, 120 years ago, some guy sat down and said, I'm going to do all 3 at once, and I'm sure that didn't make the other 2 very happy. But the drum set is a culmination of all these different percussion instruments, from drums to cymbals to even you heard me playing a cowbell. What I'm going to do is ask you a question. As the drum gets bigger, do you think the sound goes up or goes down? Do you think it's higher in pitch or lower in pitch? Who can give me an answer? Yeah. Goes lower in pitch, exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the lowest drum I have up here, which is the bass drum. Commonly played with your foot, but if you're ever in a band class or see an orchestra play, you'll see they play with a giant mallet, and they usually put their knee on it. As we keep going up, we have the other drums, which are called the toms. And I have 2 toms, otherwise called tom-toms, the low tom and the high tom. So what did I call these drums? Everybody. The toms. And as we keep going, we get to the snare drum. Now, the snare drum can sound like the toms, but it has something on it that makes it sound a little bit different. That's what we call the snares, these wires underneath. And that's what gives you the stereotypical drum sound you might hear when somebody says, drum roll, please. Are the snares. So that kind of rounds it off for all the drums you see in front of you. So you have the snare drum, the toms, or tom-toms, and the bass drum. Now, there are different cymbals for drum set as well. And I think the one most people recognize when you listen to a song are the hi-hats. They're a very dynamic group of cymbals. It's one cymbal stacked on top of the others, you can see right here. You can play them closed, you can play them open, you can play them as a mix in between. So kind of like the snare drum, there's lots of different sounds you can get out of the hi-hat. Now, going in the opposite order, as we keep going down to a slightly bigger cymbal, we get the crash cymbal. And that's what you think of, someone tells a joke. It's the impact. It's the bright contrast to the bass drum. Because when you play it by itself, it's neat. When you add the bass, you get the thump and all the highs. And finally, the last cymbal I have up here is called the ride cymbal, like I need to give me a ride to school. And this cymbal is thicker, and because that has a much more percussive sound to it. You don't necessarily use it as a crash because it's very deep and sounds a little trashy, as opposed to the brightness of the crash. But the one thing that every cymbal has, and especially the ride cymbal has, is the bell, which you can use to get different effects too. So all the instruments up here are very dynamic. And the final one, and Steve, if you would do a hand of holding up that I was playing, which none of you probably can see, is the cowbell, which is kind of a more modern addition to the drum set. Used a lot by funk, tons of styles. Salsa, Latin, funk, rock. And that kind of wraps it up for the drum set. Go-go, yeah, all types of music. And one other thing you might notice is I have some handkerchiefs on the drums. So the drums are more than just, okay, great, it's a snare drum. You can do stuff to them. You can put, gift cards on them. You can put a symbol on it, or you can put handkerchiefs on it. What it does is it changes the sound a little bit. If I take them all the way off, it's really resonant. It keeps going. The way I had it kind of cuts out some of that sound, and if you throw them all the way on, you kind of get a fat 80s kind of sound. And that rounds off the drums. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve to describe some of the other instruments we have up here.
The drums I was playing, they are called conga drums. Sometimes people say Congo, but conga is a Cuban word, and these drums come from Cuba. The reason I'm holding it up is so you can see that they're hollow, and there's only one head that's attached to these drums. So that's contributes to the sound quality a lot. These particular ones are made of wood, but nowadays they make them out of a lot of different materials. I was using different parts of my hand to get different tones and qualities. So I hope you could see that. Now, we're going to... rhythm first? Yeah. We're going to talk about, just share with you a secret that most adults in this world don't know, even the English-speaking ones. It's how do you spell the word rhythm? And we're going to do it in a way that we're going to help you remember it for sure. We're going to use something called oral tradition. Oral tradition constitutes, a lot of the time, is when you hear someone like in a village in West Africa, for example. Somebody might hear, a young child might be at the party, and they hear an adult sing a song. And there's a chorus that's sort of repetitious, and before you know it, the little one is singing right along with the adult because they're imitating vocally from there. So I'm going to ask you to repeat. I'm going to spell the word rhythm, and then I'm going to point, and I'm going to ask you to spell it out exactly the same way that I spelled it. Using the same rhythm. Okay, it goes like this. RHYTHM. 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 Okay, so now you will have this sort of burned into some circuitry in your brain, and if anybody says, like you could say to somebody, I'll bet you I know how to spell the word rhythm better than you do, and 99% of the time you'll have it and they won't know it. So there's a bet for you. You can win a bet by how do you spell the word rhythm. The other thing is, the word Wranglers, but that's another weird spelling. I'm going to just give you a hint. Begins with the letter W. I don't know why. Anyway, we as percussionists, we talked about rhythm, but now we should also give you a definition of a percussion instrument. And we have a device to help us illustrate it. A percussion instrument is any instrument that you either strike or shake. Thank you. Thank you. This is called a shekere, and it's a nice instrument for demonstrating a percussion, the two features of percussion, because you strike it, you get a nice tone by just striking it, and you also, of course, shake it. So this instrument, I actually made this one. It's like a pumpkin. It's a gourd. Grows along the ground on a vine, and I cut it off the vine, cut the top off, and cleaned the seeds and the material out from inside. And then I did something like macrame. The beads are just, they call it a skirt. You just tie knots, catch beads, tie knots, catch beads, all the way around until you get to the length you want it, and just sort of tie knots. As you can see, it's sort of tied right there on a string at the bottom. So now that's a definition, general definition, a working definition of percussion instrument. There's, of course, thousands of percussion instruments from all over the world, and we've really brought just a small sampling to share today, but we're covering some of the main bases with it. So now we would like to do a little bit more of that. Okay, so we gave you the definition, and now we're going to break the definition we gave you. It's a little bit more involved than just shaking and striking, and I'd like to see if you can tell how am I getting the sound out of this next instrument. Thank you. So, any ideas? How was the sound produced out of this crazy instrument? How about way in the back? Very good. Anybody else? That was exactly right. Rubbing, and another word is friction. So friction is another way that we get sound from a percussion instrument. And so this instrument is called a cuica, C-U-I-C-A, cuica, and it comes from Brazil, as do these. A small bell and a large bell attached together. These are called agogo bells. So this is, of course, what's this called? A lot of people know tambourine. I was using a style partly that is also Brazilian. Brazil is a wonderful place where music, it's basically the music from Africa that is blended with European influences, and the same thing in Cuba, but a different flavor. So both of those are cultures that are really worth diving into if you're interested in percussion, especially. So now,
there's one thing I wanted to add. Maybe some of you noticed. Steve gave the definition that percussion instruments are anything you shake, scrape, or hit. And some of you might have noticed I was using something different, brushes on the snare drum. And what those do is give you the nice white noise sound by scraping across the drum head. You hear it a lot in jazz, a lot in Brazilian music, and even maybe some slower Cuban music. But that is all to say that the drum set's a very versatile instrument. You don't only hit it, you can scrape it. And the final thought on that is the last thing you saw me playing was more melodic than it was percussive. So I think a big misconception about drums is, cool beat, man, you hit the beat. But drums are as much a melody as trumpet, piano, or clarinet, just like trumpet, piano, and clarinet can be as percussive as drums. So the melody I was going was... which as a kid I'm thinking about, I remember going like, George, George, Georgia, the jungle. There's a little melody right there, and that's kind of how you can remember the Brazilian clave, which is actually something we're about to start going into. Steve and I both have this little instrument you see right here, and this is called the clave. The interesting thing about it is it's not only the name of the instrument, but it's the name of the rhythm we're going to show you on the instrument, and it goes like this. And in fact, there's two sides of it. There's a 3-side and a 2-side. And I'm going to start on the 3-side, and we're going to see if at the end of this we can all play it together. So it starts like this.
So I'm going to ask you, while Kevin is doing that, to copy what I'm doing. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And we're going to start with it like this. That's a no. Last time. Good. Okay, so that is called clave. That's one form of clave. There's many different ways to play different kinds of clave. But the sticks, the two sticks, are definitely called claves. And you'll notice that they're very high-pitched. And that is a really good thing because when you have like a lot of drummers playing together, which in various West African traditions you do have, lots of drummers playing together, there has to be a guide. And so the highest pitched instrument makes sense, would be the guide for the drummers. So I'm going to give an example of that. I'm going to play a clave rhythm. It's a little slightly different rhythm. And then I'm going to ask Kevin to play songo, which is a Cuban rhythm.
Now, really quick, before you start, Steve, I'm remembering last time I was in Cuba, I actually found out, quite possibly, where the name clave comes from. So clavito means nail in Spanish. And where they think clave came from was the ships back in the day were built with ginormous nails called clave. And two people picked them up, two pieces of stick, and started playing them together, and thus was born the instrument, just out of stuff they found around the shipyard. And that's how a lot of instruments come into being.
Okay, so thank you, Kevin, for that. But I'm going to ask you now to remember the kind of cooperation that I modeled, at the very start. We really want to get your focus and see if you can make connections that what you're hearing and seeing. So we're going to ask you for quiet and not just quiet mouths, but also your bodies, and with your attention focused toward the front. So I'm going to be playing a clave rhythm, and Kevin is going to be playing a pattern that works really nicely with it.
So, that right there was the drum set part for Songo. What we're going to do now is show you the conga part that goes with it. But we're going to show you one at a time, and then Steve and I are going to play it together at the end. And while Steve's going over there, one important component of music is that it's much like a conversation. When one person's talking, the other person usually listens. Then when the next person's talking, the first person listens. And one thing to notice about what we're going to do is when Steve's playing the tone, I generally am not. And then eventually, when I'm playing the drums, Steve won't. Almost like a conversation. So here's Steve's part.
Songo, that's what that's called. And it's weaving patterns together. And there are other percussion instruments that have different, that kind of have different colors and different range and pitch that can be combined with that as well. And lots of bells, too. What do we got next?
So next, we're going to talk about a word known to a lot of percussionists called syncopation. And what syncopation is when a rhythm happens in a place you maybe don't expect it. It could be off the beat. It could be an accent where you don't expect it to happen. And it could also be leaving something out you do expect. And one great example of that is, well, before we go on to that, there's a style of music that's well known to DC. Does anybody know?
Wait, before we go too far, what was that word that Kevin just used that he's talking about? Raise your hand. Who said that? Yeah, that was right.
That was
but speak up. That was right. Okay, the word, I like everybody to say it after me. Syncopation. And what is it? It's when there's a pattern going on, and then there's an accent in a place where you don't expect it, or there's no accent where you do expect it. So it's a little bit, it adds, part of music, and this is something we didn't share with the younger group, but you guys probably could stand to know this, that one way to approach music is there's tension. Some parts of the music have tension, and other parts have release. And sometimes those things cycle in different ways, and that's one of the things that catches your attention and catches your ear. Now, that brings us back. Would you like to go ahead? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. So, I said it. Somebody did say it. What is the style of music known from DC? Anybody? Somebody said it. Go-go, exactly. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you the bell part from go-go because it's a great example of what is syncopation. And what you're going to notice, Steve's going to demonstrate it, is the bell part never lands on the beat. It never lands on the downbeat where people might expect something to happen.
Yeah, and by downbeat, we mean like the main pulse of the music. And you'll notice a lot of times in the drum set that the bass drum represents and states the downbeat. There it is. Oh, there it is. There it is again.
Yeah. So the downbeat.
That's not syncopated. That's solid.
Yes.
Okay. So actually, could you just give me a kick? We also call it kick. Okay, so that would be a typical go-go bell part. Now, where's the syncopation in that? Well, there's a big beat, the downbeat, that this bell part doesn't have, so I'm going to stomp my foot on that beat, so just so we're clear. So you notice I'm stomping, there's no sound. That's syncopation. So I'm going to consult with Mr. Kevin right now about which way we want to take this. You guys are doing great, by the way. I think it's important for us to say you're giving us really excellent cooperation, almost perfect. There's a little rumpus going on over here, and we would like 100% full-on cooperation. Please. Thank you. So, where do we take this? Okay, we talked about the oral tradition, and that, you can visualize easily a kid in a neighborhood or a village or wherever, and they hear some music going on, and they just join in. You learn little by little, you learn, and you come along and join right in. So we're going to try an experiment. This is the first time we've done this because we're going to use this go-go thing. We're going to see how Kevin can cook up a nice drum set part, or we call it drum kit also. And I'll plug in this bell part. Then I'm going to sing something, and I'd like you to sing it back to me, full, like really full on. So I'd like you all to sit up straight, take a deep breath, get some energy, because this is could be fun. I think it's going to be fun. So, ready, Mr. Kevin? Hit it! Can you feel that? Let me hear you say, yeah! All right! Hey, 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 hey. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, 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 hey. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. Hey, 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 hey. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on down, come on down. Come on down, come on down. Now it's fast. A dee da da, a do da dee, a dee da da, I do da da. I do da da. I do da da. I do da da. Yeah, good. Thank you for y'all that jumped in, and we appreciate this, all the cooperation you could possibly bring out in the listening mode and also in the jump in and do it mode. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like a well-oiled machine here. We got it going on. We're gonna now ask you if you have any questions, like about anything that we've done up here, or people want to know is Mr. Kevin single? All kinds of questions. I guess. I'm sorry. That's my attempt at humor. So yeah, any questions? Okay.
No.
Okay, listen up. Oh, yeah. Yes. That's a good question. Thank you. Because both Kevin and I, we take this is our job. So it's one of the things that's really important is that we be able to communicate with pianists and cello players and horn players, all kinds of musicians. So the more we know about music, the better. So I studied piano, I studied guitar, I know something about playing flute and woodwinds, and of course, Mr. Campbell can answer the question for himself.
Yeah, so I do play a lot of other instruments outside of drums. I play bass, both upright and electric, guitar, piano, tons and tons of percussion instruments, mallet percussion as well, marimba and xylophone. I've built a few of those instruments. I also play a fun one that Steve and I both enjoy called the cajon, which is a box you sit on and play. So yes, the answer is yes, lots of different instruments.
What was the first instrument that you guys played?
For me, it was drums. First instrument.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, well, the technical answer is my mom tried to teach me piano. That didn't work out. But the first instrument that I wanted to play was drums. So I actually learned how to play the snare drum first, then the drum set, and then everything else I said after that. And I think the interesting part is from starting from a rhythm place, a point of rhythm, it made every other instrument a little bit easier to learn, except for the harmony. Playing chords on piano was a little bit challenging, thinking about three things at once. I've been playing for about 15 years.
I've been playing for about 50 years. Okay, so Mr. Kevin has some place he has to be, so we need to wrap up the program, and we want to thank you for.
Thank you.